Okay, this video is for suspension setup. Eliminating torque twist. Tricks and tips. Shock mounting positions. Take the stock spacers, either use the stock spacers and then add about a half of one of those stock spacers, so in other words another 3 to 4 millimeters. So in total you want about 7 to 8 millimeters, maybe even more. No, about 8 or 9 actually, because I've got almost a ½ inch right here, which is about 13 millimeters. I've got about, I don't know, yeah, almost a ½ inch right here from the battery tray out. And here's the original shock mounting position right here. You can see there. Well, I moved them down here where the links hook up to the outside of the link bracket. This lowers your center of gravity of the truck. You don't want your truck sitting high. Everybody thinks, I mean, most people that are new to this and stuff like that, I'm not saying you don't know what you're doing, but I had to learn, everybody's got to learn. You want your truck low. You don't want it sitting all the way up as high as it'll go. You want, like, you want to set it low, but you want it to where it can go up. It's considered like a semi-droop setup. Your truck is sitting down like this, and when you crawl up something, it lifts up and droops like that, one side of your truck. Or if you're going up on something and then you center out on it, like you're going down like this, say my leg is a rock, you can see how it droops out. Your truck will be with its own weight sitting down like this, and it'll droop out and then slide over the object. This keeps your truck a lot more stable, and this suspension setup, basically, it takes your shocks and moves them vertically, instead of sitting down like this so far and so far angled in. Gapping them out brings them apart a little bit, not much, but every little tiny bit counts. Brings them out a little bit, and it brings the vertical setting of your shock back, which is what you want on the rear, because the rear controls the whole thing. Go to any tips site or any rock crawler tips and tricks, and to get rid of torque twist, you want to focus on the rear suspension. These are progressive dual rate springs off of an OFNA truggy or buggy. They're a big bore spring because I've got like 14 millimeter bore shocks back here. You can use these on the stock shocks. You can use red medium springs, but you're going to want to get them from something like a Stadium truck or Stampede shocks or Traxxas. T-Max shocks would work, something like that. So they're really cheap. Get some springs, and you want them stiffer in the rear than in the front. I run 45 weight oil in the back and 50 in the front, so I run a little lighter in the rear than the front with oil, but then heavier with the spring rate than I do in the front. And the rear, with the rear like this, the only reason I have this preload in here is because the scale, I've got the scale set up going for that body. A little less articulation, a little higher stance, all that stuff, but when I'm running a comp, I will move this I will move this link in here and move the shock to where the link's mounted, in between there. You'll need longer nuts. Go to the hardware store and get some long enough nuts, 20 to 30 millimeters long by 3 millimeter metric screws, just like what's on there. And the front, you can see is stock. You don't want to mess with the front. It's just fine the way it is. What you do need to do to the front is put different springs on the front and get rid of the internal springs. I took them out all around the whole truck, but you can leave them in the front. It's actually pretty good to leave them in the front, but definitely take them out of the back. get some medium springs for the back and soft for the front. The soft springs that come with the truck are considered soft, but if you go to the hobby store and buy soft springs for, say, a T-Max or a stadium truck or anything like that, they're going to be a completely different type of coil spring. They're going to be a lot heavier, and those Venom springs are just pussy-ass springs. You can take them and just flop them around. They are nothing. They're like wire, you know. They're just cheesy garbage. Just one thing I really don't like about the truck is the locking diffs and the springs that came on it. But you want to lean the shocks on the front actually more in. So take the spacers out of here if you can. Take them out and lay the shocks flat, right straight against the battery tray. Use a washer, but that's it. And leave them mounted on the axle. That will help with the front. You want the front to articulate before the back. When you're approaching an obstacle, you want the front to go up as far as it can until it can't go anymore, and then the back's already halfway working, but then you want the back to continue the process. This will keep your chassis more at a level base, and as you can see, when I articulate this thing, my front's maxed out and my back still has 50% travel to go. This keeps everything level and a lot more stable, and this gets rid of the torque steer. This rig has no torque steer or torque twist whatsoever. It completely got rid of it. When I'm climbing a hill, all four wheels are planted hard on the ground, on the rocks, where they're supposed to be. Works really well. It's a simple, easy setup. It lowers your truck by mounting this down there. It actually raises the rear axle, and the front with the softer springs and a little less preload will give you a droop setup, so you will be level, and you want about 2.5, maybe 3 at the most inches. I run about, for a comp, I run 2 inches of clearance underneath here. That's it. The lowest part of the belly, I measure down, and I want 2 inches. So that's a lot of droop. It'll be sitting down about like that. So when I pick up, it'll be about like that. About 50% droop. So try that setup, mess around with it, and this is kind of in reference to a fellow YouTuber subscriber, Bad Karma X09, I think he is. I read looked at your vids and checked out your channel and stuff, saw the way your setup is. You don't want stiffer on one side than the other, and you don't want stiffer in the front than in the back. I played around with stuff when I first started too, and it works, you know, it does work and whatever, but this is the setup, so try it out. If you have any questions and you need some more tips, let me know. Take the skid plates off, by the way. One more thing, the rear, for clearance issues, these rear steer lockouts, you want to take them and unbolt them from the skid plate. Take the skid plate off, front and rear. Don't want those. Get some spacers and some ball link ends that will work, some like 45-degree angled ones, and mount them up on the servo holes. And those, it gets them way up out of the way. You can see that. Just like the high steer front, high steer I have going on up front. You can see that the tie rod used to run way down here in the middle of the axle, and now it's way up here. Those are axial high steer aluminum knuckles from ckrc.com, 25 bucks. So good mods, good upgrades, not much money. Something you really want to do to the Venom to make it a legitimate, worthy competition ready truck. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope the tips work for you, and let me know if they do, and give me some feedback. Keep crawling. Happy trails. Peace.